All right. We might get started. Thank you very much for joining us and thank you for being on time. A very good morning to you. My name is Andrew McCallum. I'm the Manager of Membership and Community Engagement at auDA, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar. I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to elders past and present, to those who've passed before us, and to the members of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community who are attending today. I want to specifically acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land to which I'm coming to you. Before I introduce today's guest, Adam Selwood, Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of Cynch Security, I want to highlight that this webinar is scheduled for 45 minutes and will be recorded. In introducing today's topic, I don't have to tell you that the topic of cybersecurity is a vital one for auDA's members and stakeholders, and in fact for consumers and businesses right across Australia. The Australian Signals Directorate's 2022-23 threat report highlighted 23% increase in cybercrime reports against small businesses, totaling 94,000 attacks against Australian businesses in that 12 months. That represented an average cost to small businesses of $46,000. And those findings are consistent with the findings of the auDA report, including the Digital Lives of Australians report. And now, with that very worrying insight into the broad issue of cybersecurity for small business, I'm very, very pleased to introduce today's guest speaker to tell us how we can protect ourselves and our small businesses. Adam Selwood is the co-founder and Chief Technology Officer at Cynch Security, a Melbourne-based company on a mission to help small business leaders prevent a cybersecurity incident from becoming one of the worst days of their career. The Cynch team partner with small businesses, continuously profiling their cyber risks and providing the people at the heart of these businesses with everything they need to build and demonstrate cyber fitness. Prior to founding Cynch Security, Adam was a senior architect and head of cyber resilience initiatives with Australia Post. I can see Adam has the purple shirt on today, so I take that as a positive. And Adam, I'm pleased to hand over to you to take us away.
No worries. Thank you very much, Andrew. Welcome, everyone. Let me just steal the screen, as I want to do. Steal things from people. Hopefully you can all see my slides and we'll get cracking into it. So thank you again to auDA and Andrew and auDA and the rest of the team there for the opportunity to speak to you all this morning. We're going to run through a bit of a whirlwind tour of cyber risk and a concept that we like to call cyber fitness. We'll dig into that today and explain it a little bit, help you to orient, give you a bit of background around it, and hopefully leave you armed and prepared to actually go off and improve the security and keep your own businesses nice and safe and sound online and in the digital world we all exist in now. There is a few opportunities in the first instance through the QR codes and the URLs that are thrown up on the slides here to check out our platform. It is something that there is an offer to auDA members for a discount on our solution, but feel free to engage with it and sign up, and everything we discuss today is covered through our platform, which I'll touch on briefly in a minute anyway. Just a quick rundown of the agenda, as I said. So I'll introduce myself and Cynch, what we do. We're going to talk and explore how to actually think about your cyber risk and measuring of that. We'll run through, give you a bit of an understanding of what sort of threats are out there, the sorts of things that you should be looking out for and potentially scared about if you're not already scared. Then we'll crack on with the important stuff of how to actually protect yourself and what you can do about it. And I will try to leave a bit of time at the end for Q&A. I'm going to go through things pretty quickly, so please feel free to throw something in the chat or stop me or ask questions along the way. I'll leave a little bit of time at the end, hopefully, but in the meantime, if there's anything in particular you'd like me to expand on or cover, please flag that and let me know. A little bit about us to start with. So Cynch started back in 2018. My co-founder Susie and I were working at Australia Post at the time and had been exploring small business cyber risk and identified this as a major issue within the economy, something that really needed to be addressed and weren't good solutions for. We spun out and established Cynch off the back of that, and are now proud to be supporting or have supported over 1,400 Australian small businesses. We prefer pretend. We definitely do it. We prefer to refer to and think about the approach to addressing your cyber risk as a concept called cyber fitness. And the idea is grounded in your physical fitness, whereby if you were to go to the gym and smash yourself for an hour or two, and then just pretend that that's it, you probably wouldn't be particularly healthy. It's an ongoing process that you need to go through. It's something that needs to be managed and maintained over time. And cyber security and your cyber fitness within your business is very much the same. It's about understanding and measuring where you're at. It's about making gradual incremental improvements and doing that on a continual basis and making sure that you're working on the highest priorities. And so what we do is, and our platform and our entire team and business is geared around helping small and micro businesses do that themselves. As much as possible, as well as with their security partners and or technology partners. I can see a couple might be in the audience today as well. Welcome. Our platform, so we have a cloud application, so it's a SaaS platform you can sign up to. You can get a free trial on that, and again, you get a discount if you're an auDA member or sign up through that URL on the bottom of the screen there. It is designed, as I said, to help you measure, first and foremost, understand where your cyber risk is at the moment and what you should be concerned about. It's all grounded in your specific technology stack. So we only recommend that you do things that are specifically relevant to you. We're very mindful that small businesses don't have a lot of time or resources. So we're very, very much about optimizing your efforts into the right areas. We give you everything that you need to build your cyber fitness, everything from plain language instructions you can follow with step-by-step on how to implement security and recommendations on affordable solutions, if that makes sense, as well as the ability to collaborate with your team. And then lastly, we help you to maintain that by sending out security alerts if there's something that you do need to action and look at, but also helping remind you that there's reviews that need to be done, stuff that needs to be looked at. So it's really a holistic platform to help you to sort of understand and manage your cyber risk. And that's where we're at. And again, something that everyone, it's designed for small businesses. So it's something we believe every business should have or be using if they're not already doing something similar. That's it. That's the spiel. I'll stop trying to sell you on something that you may or may not be interested in now. Let's get down to the meat of the session. So really what we are mindful of, and I did touch on this briefly before, is that smaller businesses in particular are really constrained. You're constantly under attack. And this is before we even think about cyber. We never have enough time, never enough cash. And it's really hard to find and get access to the right people and the right insights. So what is it that I need and how do I get the right skills and things that are going to help me to actually address the time and money and hopefully get out of this small business space or to continue to exist for a long time to come. So it's a really, really wicked problem. Just running a small business, as a small business owner myself, I'm intimately familiar with that. It's hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. And overlaying on that and growing constantly is this emerging underpinning cyber threat that's out there. And everyone's talking cyber here and there. And we hear about the Optuses and you know, all Medibanks and all these other big organizations out there that are getting attacked and the news gets all excited about. But as Andrew alluded to earlier, you know, tens of thousands of attacks on small businesses every single year in Australia and around the world. And we are a target and we are victims to that. And whilst, you know, we don't hear about a lot of small businesses necessarily going out of business as a result of a cyber attack, it is, you know, it's a devastating experience for anyone who's had it. Anyone who's been on the receiving end of a cyber attack intimately knows this is the most important thing that they need to be dealing with. It is an existential thing. It's something that can be addressed. And really what we want to aim to do, and hopefully today's session will help you to just understand that a little bit better, give you a few pointers on how to approach and dig into that, so that instead of that being a devastating moment, something that completely undermines and pulls the rug out from underneath you, it's something that you're prepared for, you understand, and you have the resources and the things available to you to actually address that. And hopefully make that, as Andrew said, hopefully make that not the worst day of your career, but something that you can bounce back from and potentially even accelerate off the back of. Before we dig into things and before we really worry about what are the cyber threats and things, the most important thing that you need to do within your business before you go anywhere is to figure out who's actually responsible for the cyber risk in your business. And the likelihood is that if you're here today, and if it's not already defined as to who the risk sits with, it's probably you. There's probably an expectation, either you have it yourself or someone else in your organization imagines and believes that you are responsible for this. So until you find another owner for this, it's probably something you should take responsibility for and figure that out. And so the really key thing and the way that we suggest that you go through and actually understand who's responsible for cyber risk within your company is to think about that devastating, horrible day where all of a sudden you discover that all your systems are shut down or your data's been stolen or there's someone in there doing something nefarious inside of your technology. Think about that moment and then imagine who is everyone else in your organization or your customers or whoever it might be that's in your network, in your business. Who is everyone looking at? You might instinctually go through, it's my IT guy. And sure, people are going to be looking at the IT guy to go and clean up the mess. But really, the person who's responsible for coordinating and getting the IT guy in or communicating with your customers or just making everyone understand where you're at and actually engaging and dealing with this as a risk, that individual is the person who owns the cyber risk in your business. And what we find in small and micro businesses is that is typically the owner. And if it's not the owner, it might be the office manager, or it's going to be that sort of person who coordinates and runs the operations of the business and is responsible and really knows the business end to end. That's probably going to be the person. And so everything that we covered today, and again, everything in our platform is really geared around supporting that person and helping them to understand and fix and navigate this space, because it is a complex and very evolving space. But before we go forward, really just stop, reflect, take a moment, think about who is the cyber risk owner within your business, really define that, make it very clear, and ideally let the whole team know. And that is something that we'll talk about a little bit in a minute. And again, if that's something that you're not sure about today, just assume that it's you. And if not, go back to later in the day or tomorrow and have a conversation and figure that out and get that defined clearly. Once you understand who is responsible for the cyber risk, then it's important for you to actually figure out what is, or the next important step is figure out what's important to your business. Again, we don't need to worry about what sort of attacks or who's coming after you, or is it, a Russian or North Korean hacker or any of that sort of thing. Don't need to worry about that. The first thing to do is to step back and stop and think about what are the important technologies in my business that I need to maintain and that really need to be there and that I'm worried about. What's the stuff that I need to be protecting? And first and foremost, this can just be go through and put a list together of all the things that you have within your business. You might be surprised if you haven't done this before, that there's quite a lot of stuff in there. So think about it from the perspective, like just even step through your day. Think about it from the perspective of when you wake up in the morning. What are the technologies that you're using to check your email, check your calendars, maybe coordinate and communicate with your team and customers? All of these things, like just list down all of the different stuff that you might have before you even leave for the office or log into your machine at home like I do. Then think about how you coordinate across your team. You might have planning tools, you might have communication systems, there's going to be email in the mix inevitably, there's going to be a whole bunch of different stuff that everyone is in there using on a day-to-day basis. If you're in a law practice, it'll be a practice management platform. If you're in an accounting practice, it's also going to be a practice management platform. But there's lots of different systems and things that we all use. Every single organization is going to be different, going to have a different thing, and just think about and list down the ones that are important that you're using on a regular basis. Think about it from a perspective of communicating with your customers. That's going to be email again, but it's going to be your website. It's going to be your social media accounts, potentially. It's going to be all the different mechanisms that you use to coordinate. Could be your phone system. Anything that you use to coordinate and communicate and interact with your customers or that they're using, then you're extracting information from and using. These are important systems to be mindful of and to be looking at and assessing. Your financials are really important. One of the key platforms for every small business, whether you're using Xero or MyOb or one of the other accounting tools. So anything else that you're using to sort of manage your finances or process payments. We use Stripe at Cynch. That's something that we very mindful of and have a lot of controls in place around. And then lastly, once you've collected and interacted with all of these things, it's likely that you've got that information kicking around inside your business somewhere. It might be sitting in the cloud in Dropbox or in Microsoft SharePoint or OneDrive. It could be that you're taking backups of that, and that data is now sitting somewhere else entirely, or on a machine kicking around in your office, or on a hard drive at your house. All of these sorts of things are all technology that are dependent on your business. Every single one of those things carries some sort of risk. There's also even, I haven't even touched on the actual computers that we naturally all think about, the laptops and the phones and the desktops and things that we all use. They are also equally important. But as you might have kind of gotten across there, or hopefully I've gotten across, it's actually all of the systems and things that you're using where your data is sitting. It's the things that people are interacting with. So much of small business nowadays is cloud-based. So whilst your devices are very important to protect, don't just stop there. Just running antivirus isn't enough nowadays. We also need to be looking at how do we protect all of these systems that are the things that underpin and keep our business operating. So first step, once you've got an owner, put together a list of the important technologies in your business. Now you're ready to think about what could go wrong. And when you're thinking about what could go wrong, and what we would say is actually, before we even go here, is actually look at that list of technologies and think about what are the top 3 or 4, or even the top 1. If there's one system that you're really uncomfortable and awkward about, or that's really important to your business, just start there. The most important thing is to prioritize and pick something important for you to be working on. So start with these top technologies that you're using, go through that list, and then ask yourself 3 questions. And we call this the CIA triad, which is a very technical term that we use for these things. But fundamentally, it's an acronym for 3 different scenarios or problems that could occur or arise inside of any one of those technologies that you picked out. So we could pick any of those technologies, and there will be the potential for any one of these different events to occur. So the first one is confidentiality. So this is the one where this is the issue that Optus had, that Medibank had. They had sensitive information, and that information was accessed by people who shouldn't have had it. So there was confidential, sensitive data kicking around inside of those organizations. Then all of a sudden, that information was out in the public or accessed by someone with malintent, or that wasn't authorized to have access to that. That's what we call a confidentiality event. You and your business will have, guaranteed, you will have something that is confidential and sensitive inside of your organization. It could just be the email addresses of your clients or customers, but it could be something way more confidential, even particularly if you're in sort of more sensitive spaces like health and legal and all of those types of areas. Confidentiality is, and the trust that you have with your clients and customers, these are fundamental, and that is something that you're probably going to be prioritizing and protecting first and foremost. So think about those technologies that you have, what is kicking around in there, and is there some sort of potential issue if the confidentiality of the data in those systems was undermined in some way. Integrity is a little bit trickier to wrap your head around. This is where the information or the system itself can no longer be trusted. So someone or something has gotten in there and manipulated it in a way, or changed it or altered it, so that you don't really know, or you can't trust it anymore. That information is no longer accurate, or the inputs and outputs, or the way that that system is operating is compromised in some way. So that's an integrity event. There are particularly certain systems or certain types of companies where that is really, really a major issue. So if you're doing research or you're in science-based areas, that's a real issue. Again, potentially if you're in health and medical records are being manipulated or changed. But even just, if someone's in your email and somehow they're actually able to alter details, such as bank account details when emails are going out, that's an integrity issue, and therefore someone could be paying into the wrong accounts. This happens all the time, and it's something to be mindful of. So again, work through those systems and work through those technologies that you depend on, and think about it from the perspective of someone who might be going after that, and go, well, what if someone was in there and changing something, or what would happen if I couldn't trust that anymore? How comfortable, or is that a problem for me? There are plenty of systems out there we don't really care about so much, but there are also a number of them where that is quite important, and it's a scenario we should be considering and thinking about. And then the last one, which is probably the most obvious one when it happens, is availability. And that's essentially the system or the technology just disappears and is unavailable to you, or partially unavailable, just goes away. And this is what is common, probably the most common version of this inside of the environment at the moment is a ransomware attack. Someone goes in, locks down all of your systems. You no longer have access to that. That's an availability issue. They ransom that back to you and expect you to pay them to unlock that so that you can continue to do that. The attackers are now going further and they're going off. They'll lock your system down and then take the data as well before they do that, and then ransom you twice. They'll ransom you so that they don't release the data, as well as ransom you so that you can get access to the data yourself. And they're going off and doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things off the back of that. But again, fundamentally, it's like if your email was to disappear tomorrow, that's going to be a really bad day for you. If you can't, or you can't get into Xero for any particular reason, that's going to be a problem for you maybe in a few weeks when you needed to run end of month reporting, but probably not a big issue for your business, and you'll probably continue to operate. So every system, every technology in your business will have these types of issues. They could arise. So thinking about what would happen if the data was compromised or couldn't be trusted system, or it went away, think about that, profile that, and get uncomfortable with it. Figure out which of the technologies that you have and you rely on are the most important for you, and potentially which of these scenarios is also the worst one for you from there. I'm going to skip through a few things just in the interest of time. But one of these things, and the key thing once you've done that exercise, you've got your prioritized list of concerns or things to worry about, is really think about what of that in that big list of stuff. So let's say you've got a dozen systems or technologies that you've identified, and each one of those has 3 potential issues. You've now got, what, 36 different situations to be worried about. Again, just prioritize those. What makes you most uncomfortable? What are the things that you've just explored there that are keeping you up at night? And pick them as a starting point. That will help you to focus and deal with something meaningful to you and your business as a start. It's less important that you optimize and do the biggest threat. It's more important that you start to take action and work on something that is going to give you confidence that you're actually improving your posture and your situation. That will allow you then to continue to do it over time. If you're not quite sure, this is being recorded, and feel free to take a screenshot of this as well. But here are a few ideas and some things that might actually lead to or cause a problem. Things like installing updates, responding to a cyber incident. So if that moment I said where everyone's looking at you makes you feel uncomfortable, that might be the situation that you need to deal with, and you might need to think about is, how am I actually going to respond? What am I going to do when everyone starts looking at me? Recovering from backups, dangerous emails. There's lots and lots of different issues that you can be exploring and digging into. Again, the most important thing isn't to find the biggest one, it's to pick one. Just pick one and start thinking about what you can do to actually address that. Once you've done that, then so I'm gonna skip this bit. This is just a bit of an overlay for those of you who work in sort of regulated industries or where there's a bit of risk there. Just be aware that whilst all of these attacks and things are going on, there's also a lot of regulation and expectations growing quite rapidly in the industry, generally speaking. So there's a lot of stuff going on at the federal level, where we've got the Security of Critical Infrastructure Bill that's been amended recently. There's some new legislation that's being explored that may actually bring in obligations for all sorts of organisations that we don't currently have. If you do business with government, there's also expectations, and you will be expected to have a lot of different policies and processes and good practices and systems in place to protect yourself. Otherwise, you may not be eligible to actually secure contracts moving forward. This is also occurring in enterprises as a result and a side effect of a lot of these legislative changes. So the landscape is shifting just from a regulatory perspective. It is something that we all need to be mindful of. But again, the most important thing is to just be doing things. As long as you're allocating energy and resources and time and effort to doing something, and not just ignoring it and thinking it's your IT guy's issue, as long as you're doing that, you're going to be well positioned to react and respond or get ahead of this if you've actually got the energy for that. Just noting on the right-hand side, there were some, ASIC did take RI advice to court, and there's some precedents that's been set where RA advice was found to be negligent around cybersecurity and not managing things appropriately. There's a case there, if anyone's interested in exploring that, where this is a big list of stuff that they weren't doing properly or well. And so there's a laundry list of things there, not a lot of technology-based stuff. These are things like governance, risk assessment, supply chain management, access management. These aren't really technology-based. These are just things that everyone is expected to be doing now. And many of us really don't have a good comprehensive understanding of that yet. So if this is an area and if you are sort of in a space where it's likely you'll be subjected or expectations are going to be high, we would encourage you to be reaching out to someone in the security profession to help you with that. Doesn't necessarily need to be us, but certainly this is an area where there is expertise that needs to be done. We're across it, but feel free to engage. And we would suggest to start to look at, get someone that you can trust and refer to as someone who can help you to navigate this space if you think this applies. Excuse me. So we've gone through a bunch of stuff at this point, probably scared you a little bit. Hopefully, if not, great. That means you're in a good spot. Maybe this will kind of fire off a few new ideas as well. So once you've got, an owner for the risk, if it's you, sorry, or great, however you want to think about it. You've got a big list of technologies. You've got a bunch of stuff that could go wrong inside of those technologies. You're feeling uncomfortable. You've picked one or two of those things. Now's the time for you to kind of reward yourself for the things you've already done. So here's a bit of a list of some starting points. These are things that everyone should just have fundamentally in place. This is what we call our baseline. So think about, for those devices that you're using, what sort of permissions are in place? Is it if you click the wrong link, is that going to then chain reaction into something really bad day, or are you running in a locked down or controlled environment? Are you installing security updates regularly? If you haven't updated something in the last week, you should have. There's guaranteed to be something in your environment and your business that needs to be updated. Go looking for it. You will find something, guaranteed. You'll find something today that should be updated. If that's not a practice that you have in place, or you're not being notified that there are things to be done, that should be an area that you focus on and get started on. Email protection, that is a really key thing. So many attacks and whatnot, they're going to be not necessarily targeting the technologies in your environment. They're going to be targeting you. And they're going to be doing that probably through the communication channels you have. Email is going to be one of those first ports of call. So really think about that account and spend a lot of energy protecting that, enabling things like multi-factor authentication. We can dig into that if anyone's interested, but really put some energy into and make sure that your email systems are locked down. And that is largely because that's the gateway to all of the other things that you're using. Make sure that you have backups in place. Make sure that that's getting sent somewhere else so that it can be recovered in time of crisis. And make sure that you know how to get it back if you need to. So there's a bunch of things there. Your web browser, so much business is done online now. It's, again, just like your email. Make sure that you just spend a little bit of energy making sure that you've got things like ad blockers installed and potentially configuring the way that that's being locked down and secured. Have some policies and good practices around strong passwords. That's a whole 15-minute section if anyone's keen in that. Give you recommendations, but there's plenty of advice out there on how to do a lot of this stuff, but these are things that you should have in place and be intentional about. Don't just say you've got strong passwords. Really understand what a strong password is. Should be something that's long, it's hard to guess, and it's unique. If you have those three things, then you're in a good spot. And that means passwords everywhere. So if you're reusing the same password, that's not unique. You need to be having independent passwords. They all need to be long and they need to be hard to guess. That basically leads you to needing a password manager or to be doing something else similar to that. So something to look at. Office applications are common targets as well for many businesses. So if you're running Microsoft Office and increasingly things like Zoom, and you're using that actively in your business, that's something to look at and make sure you've locked that down a little bit. I mentioned response planning. If you don't already have a response plan in place, get one in place, formalize it, document it, make sure that you know and you've practiced it and you know exactly what you're going to do when everyone starts looking at you because all of a sudden your systems are down or some mass spam emails been sent out from your to your customers. Cyber insurance, if it's not something that you've looked at in the past, definitely explore that. That is an interesting space. It is very useful to have, particularly to help you in the event of an incident. However, there are a lot of hurdles to get it in the first place. And we would recommend that you address and get on top of your cyber risk before you go too far in cyber insurance. Otherwise, your premiums are going to be through the roof. So it's certainly something to explore, though. Very worthwhile if you don't already have something. There are good business processes you can think about and explore. That's a whole thing. So just reviewing that, making sure that you've got things like if someone does ask you to change account details, that you're contacting them directly and validating that that's a legitimate request. Very important in certain industries in particular. Even just for payroll, if don't just trust that one of your team contacting you from their personal Gmail account is a legitimate request. It could mean that all of a sudden their pay is going into the wrong place. And then lastly, staff training. So your first line of defense is you and your team. Really upskill your staff, give them a bit of awareness, help them to understand what are your priorities, who should they be contacting if they see something suspicious, what are the areas of risk that you're uncomfortable with, and what are your expectations of the things that they should be doing. Make sure that they understand what a strong password is. Make sure that they understand how to navigate the internet properly or safely. Make sure that they're familiar with the sorts of scams and emails and things that are flying around. Make sure that they're updating their systems. If they're working from home, you need to kind of encourage them to be protecting and thinking about all the dangers that come along with that as well. So lots and lots of things for you to be doing. Again, this is the foundation. These are the starting points. If you've ticked all those boxes, then you're off to the races. You're in a really good spot and you can build off the top of that. If you haven't ticked all of these boxes yet, we would recommend that you start exploring and starting here. So get all of this in place. And hopefully as you go through this as well, then once you've been through this exercise or you have these things in place, you can go back now, look at that big list of technologies and the risks and the potential pitfalls and the things that are uncomfortable, and think about all this stuff that I'm already doing. How is that mitigating those areas of concern? How is that making it so that I don't need to worry about that and I can sleep a little bit better at night? If the areas that you're concerned most about aren't addressed by the things here or other things that you're doing, and certainly the next step beyond this is to think about all the other stuff that you may be doing as well. If those major concerns that you have aren't being addressed by that, then really you should be thinking about what can I do beyond what I'm already doing to reduce my concern around these particular areas that we've got in the business. Just a really interesting framework, just a way to do that. And really the idea of cyber fitness is to just continually be doing that. Thinking about what are the biggest risks in the business, thinking about what you're already doing, and then off the back of that going, well, where are the gaps? What are the things that I should be doing or could be doing to help me sleep a little bit better at night? And then again, that kind of overlay of the regulatory space and the expectations that are growing both from customers and potential regulators and whatnot as well. That's just adding more incentive for you really to get on top of it and to be doing this in a proactive basis. And really the goals of all of that is to ensure that you're doing it continually. This isn't something you can just knock yourself out, smash yourself for 8 hours in a gym and then you're fit, right? This is something that you need to get in, get some stuff doing, do it on a regular, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis. It's something that everyone should be doing continually on an ongoing basis. If you've ticked all those boxes and you're looking for other areas to be prioritizing and having a think about, the way to think about it, there's sort of 3 areas that you can improve your cyber fitness. You can look at it from a people, process, or technology basis. There's a few things on the screen there. I won't dig into them too much, but certainly risk management is one of the big things everyone's expecting in the industry now. If you don't formally have a cyber risk on your risk register internally, or you're not thinking about cyber risk proactively in that way, that would be a good space. Getting proactive alerts. So as I said, there's new things to be updating and configuring and improving every single day or every single week, at least in every business. If you're not proactively being notified about that, that's something to look at. How can you get proactively notified? And then there's a bunch of stuff in particular around email and awareness and avoiding impersonation and things in that space too. So really thinking about if your email systems are something that are constantly seeing attacks around or that you're uncomfortable about, certainly dedicate a bit of time and have a chat with someone about implementing some of the things on the screen there. And I think we're at the end. So the last little wrap up, and then I'm going to throw to questions. I think I've got about 10 minutes for questions, which I think is not too bad. Yeah, you can sign up as an auDA member. There's a discount with our platform. Our platform, if you do choose to enroll in that and have a bit of a poke around, it's a free 14-day trial. It does help you to do everything that we've just discussed today. So in the first 15 minutes of signing up, you'll go through an exercise to capture your technologies, figure out where your priority risks are, do a bit of a health check to see where you should be focusing your energies. And then on the back of that, we'll let you know what you should be working out. We'll help you to develop policies, procedures. You can work with all your existing support providers. We love IT guys. And you can contact us if you've got any questions from that point. But with that, I'm going to stop rambling and I'm going to give everyone 9 minutes to ask questions right now.
Thank you for that, Adam. I'm afraid you've brought my entire personal fitness philosophy into question, but that was really good. And
when have you ever been to the gym for 8 hours, Andrew? Like, I've never done it, mate.
No, it was the smashing out for 1 hour and thing.
The 1 hour that I started.
Yeah,
okay,
that
yeah,
was
good.
But I do just, please, if you do have any questions, now is a great time to put them in the chat while we have some time. We do have a few, but I would just, take that opportunity to remind you of that offer for auDA members, so you can get a free cybersecurity health check via the Cynch Security website. And we'll pop that link in the chat now if you didn't grab it. Members also have the opportunity to have receive a discount off the ongoing monthly subscription if you choose to take that up as well. So
Correct.
that offer is provided by Cynch Security. Okay, let's jump into a few questions. Here's a good one. How do you think the general public with limited technical knowledge become aware of cyber risks? And do you think people are starting to take those risks seriously?
I think it's growing. I don't think the general public take it as seriously as they should. But I think the way that people become aware of it, unfortunately, is the wrong way, which is through incidents. So things happen. This time last year, we started talking Optus, Medibank, those types of things, and we say that because the general public is aware of it. So it's the media. They sort of out for blood. There's blood in the ocean. We're having a look at that. For better or worse, Australia is an active target for these types of attacks. We're a very affluent country, so we see these things all the time. It is basically the general public's becoming aware of the risks, either because the media are talking about incidents that have occurred, and more directly, they're on the receiving end of it. Like Optus, 30% of Australian public was an Optus customer. Medibank, it's not uncommon to talk to people who've been notified of serious incidents and had to change license numbers and things like that, like multiple times in the last couple of years. So we've become intimately aware that these things occur and influence us as individuals. I think the big challenge, and certainly the disappointment I have, is that the general public haven't quite matured to the point where every business interaction and every technology that they use carries this risk, and it's not necessarily something that they've internalized. And so it's something we're always out there trying to champion for and support any initiatives to try to raise awareness and highlight this type of thing. And more importantly, I think as well, is to give people some answers as to how to navigate it. It's a complex, evolving, scary space in a lot of instances, so people do sort of shy away from it. It's not something that they want to engage in. But really, if you break it down and you think about it in a practical way, and give people the right tools and simplify things, we believe that really helps people wrap their heads around it and engage with it. So unfortunately, everyone's hearing about it for the wrong reasons, because we're all victims.
I've got you mentioned incident response plans for businesses very briefly. Can you talk through just a couple of where a small business would start in developing an incident response plan in the event of a cybersecurity?
Yeah. So the way we tackle it in our platform, we run everyone through an exercise where we give you a scenario. So in our instance, it's someone's received a suspicious email, asking for account details to be changed. And really, you just kind of run through that scenario. So some people call it like a tabletop exercise. You ask yourself, well, if someone on the team received an email, who should they be contacting? And you write down the details of who they should be contacting. Then you kind of escalate the scenario. You're like, actually, it was a really bad email. Who do I go to investigate that from the technology? So you're going to write your IT person's details down. Then off the back of that, you're going to then go, actually, we lost some information and we need to engage with some PR consultants, or we need to engage with some lawyers, or we need to contact our insurer. So really the exercise is to run through a scenario and think about who are all of the key people, and it is always people in this scenario that you're going to need to communicate with, document that down, and then you overlay that with formalize that into a step-by-step process and some checklists and some other bits and pieces. But the first step is really who do I need to contact in the event of a crisis? It's quite interesting. Sometimes you may have, again, like regulators, depending on your size and your turnover. There's the privacy, there's the information commissioner from a privacy perspective. Depending on the industry, there's going to be people you're going to be expected to communicate with. And it's just really going through that exercise, thinking through that bad day and putting that in a document somewhere. Because if you don't have that written down, if that isn't documented or formalized somewhere, the worst time to be trying to figure that out is in the event of a crisis. You're going to be scrambling around. There's going to be 1,000 things going on, trying to find and dig out the contact details for your lawyer. It's the last thing you want to be doing. You want to have them on speed dial. Once you've got that, then there's some other things you should do, like actually contacting them on those numbers to check that they work and that they're going to answer and pick it up when you need them. But that's an important starting point, just pulling together a list of important initial contacts. Then you can structure, do all sorts of structure around.
Okay. Here's a tricky one for you, Adam. Just forewarned there. We're seeing an increase in generative AI programs in the workplace, and I guess ChatGPT is probably a good example of that.
Yes.
Is that presenting any increased risks for business, the use of those programs?
It's definitely introducing new risks. Is it introducing increased risks? Hard to say at the moment. There was always so the biggest. Think of it. We just take the framework that I said: confidentiality, integrity, availability. So it really does. Anytime you bring a new technology, be it generative AI or anything, it comes with those risks. So we can just run through. Maybe you're embedding and using ChatGPT in your business now. You're starting to use it. Working backwards, what happens if ChatGPT goes away? Does your business now stop because you built your entire business around a process and all of a sudden OpenAI shuts it down or gets rid of something? And these are pretty new emerging technologies. This stuff does happen at the moment. So you need to think about, well, what if it goes away? Protect yourself and be prepared for that. Integrity is probably the biggest one from generative AI. It hallucinates. We can't trust this stuff as much as we would want to. So are you comfortable with the level of trust in the results and what it's actually giving you and the outputs that it's giving you? Really consider that and think about that. What happens if something untrustworthy results and gets pushed into my business? Like, how do I deal with that? And then obviously the confidentiality one as well. So if you have, increasing number of tokens and all the other bits and pieces, we can just upload massive amounts and volumes of data now. You're essentially, are you actually entitled to share that information with that organization, and or where does it go and what could happen with it? That potentially, if you're taking sensitive files and documents and things and dropping that into a generative AI model, and it's not something that you have control over, you're essentially sharing that information with an untrusted party. So it's something that, you do just stop, think about generative AI or any technology, run through a quick thought exercise. What would happen if the information I'm giving it is confidentiality is lost? What if it's untrustworthy? That's probably the biggest one for me. So there's certainly, I don't mind if I use it. We use it for some social media and some other bits and pieces. But in terms of our risk assessment and some of the, things where we have a higher level of assurance, we don't as a policy have it in place without lots of checks and balances and things. And then the availability thing, that's the other thing. Is it ready? Are the things in place, and do you have the fallback processes in the event that it just disappears overnight, which sadly, with emerging technologies, is a reality. That's something that does occur.
Okay.
New risks, more risks, probably. Don't know, just new ones.
Just very quickly, another question just come through about, do you think Australian websites are targets for attacks? And is it easy to attack our websites? I might take that one, Adam, if I can.
Go for it.
As I will refer to Adam's earlier answer, Australia is a wealthy country and we are a target. The .au domain, however, is very safe in comparison to our global peers. 0.03% of .au domains are subject to malicious or potentially malicious attacks at any one time. And the majority of our own research, our secure.au report, does indicate that the majority of Australians will only buy from a .au website because it is perceived as more secure than a top-level domain such as .com, for example. And part of that is because auDA runs a very, very strict licensing regime. If you are interested, that secure.au report is in the chat at the moment. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. I do want to just refresh again that the opportunity to take advantage of the Cynch Security free cyber fitness check is available in that link on our chat. I do want to thank everyone for taking the time to join today, and I particularly want to thank our friends from Penrith CBD Corporation for joining us today. It's great to have you along. And thank you to Adam for your time and your continued offer to our members. We might just throw up our upcoming events. I'll mention quickly, we are in northern New South Wales next week in Armidale and Tamworth. If any members are in those regions, we'd love to see you along. We'll be talking about powering small businesses in the digital landscape. In Sydney, still next week, we're back doing a workshop, Safeguarding Your Business with Sprint Law, another one of our affiliate partners. That's in Sydney next Thursday afternoon. And there is also a webinar coming up on the 13th of March, which will be a debrief of the ICANN 79 conference. That's on next week. Finally, of course, I must mention, if you're not already a .au member, please do join. You do get access to a lot of research and insights and invitations to webinars and events such as today's from Adam. Membership with auDA is free, and you can join via the QR code on the screen and obviously via our website. Membership is complimentary, as are our member events. On that note, thank you so much for joining us today. We've almost finished on time, which is a good thing. Thank you to Adam again, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thanks so much.
Thank you all.